G'day Earthlings, Dr. Rank here, and welcome to Gaming Legends, the show that always has the high ground. The LEGO Star Wars series retells the story of a galaxy far, far away with a highly sophisticated interlocking brick system. And of course you can't have Star Wars without lightsaber battles. But as a wise Jedi once said, there are alternatives to fighting. Can you beat LEGO Star Wars the complete saga without attacking? The goal of this run is to complete all 6 episodes in story mode from a fresh save file while pressing the attack button as few times as possible. This button is usually assigned to the X button on an Xbox controller, but can be freely remapped in the PC version. Unfortunately, a pure no attack button playthrough will be outright impossible. Instead, we'll be doing a low score challenge in each individual chapter, with the final total being our sum of best. And finally, red brick cheats are allowed, provided we can collect the corresponding red brick without adding on any extra attacks. Without further ado, let's start episode 1. We start out with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who aren't the most useful characters, but they do have one good trick. Jedi can use the Force with the special button, which can kill battle droids in one hit. Not every enemy is this vulnerable though. Droidekas, for example, are completely immune to the Force. Luckily, we've still got our Padawan. AI players are allowed to do whatever the heck they want, and are fully capable of taking out Droideka shields. Unfortunately, the shield has a separate health bar from the Droideka itself, and enemies will never take actual damage from AI players' attacks. But what counts as an AI player is a little flexible. If an AI-controlled Obi-Wan initiates a lightsaber swing and then becomes player-controlled mid-swing, the enemy will still take damage. This also applies to any blaster bolts that are deflected, letting us finish Chapter 1 with 0 attacks. Chapter 2 is extremely simple, requiring almost no combat by design. We unlock Jar Jar Binks halfway through the level, and he doesn't even have an attack button to begin with. Finishing the level also adds Jar Jar to our free play roster. Now let's move on to Chapter 3. Oh, sorry, did I say Chapter 3? I meant Episode 3. Once you finish Chapter 1-1, all 6 episodes are unlocked at the same time. You are neither required nor encouraged to play this game chronologically. The machete order is better anyway. Chapter 3-1 is an on-rails shooter level, and unfortunately, it can't be beaten without shooting. We're required to hold down the attack button at least once to fire the lasers on our ship and clear the path. As for why we're even doing this level so early, 3-1 has the unique property of allowing you to get every single collectible on your first visit. One such collectible is the red brick, which unlocks the Vehicle Smart Bomb extra. Buy it from the cantina, enable it in the pause menu, and take it into episodes 2 and 5 for a test drive. If you hold the special button for 3 seconds while in a vehicle level, it summons a screen nuke that damages every single enemy on screen. This is especially useful in 2-1 as it lets you win the boss fight against Zam Wessel without firing a single shot. 5-1 is designed around the use of the tow cable, which is also operated with the special button, and thus causes no issues. However, we absolutely need the red brick from this level, and it's locked behind a TIE Fighter gate. This gate will only open in free play if we're playing as a TIE Fighter. All TIE Fighter variants are sold in the shop, but can only be purchased after finishing the entirety of Episode 4. Considering the kind of shenanigans we had to pull off just to clear 4-1, finishing the entire episode with almost no red bricks is not gonna happen. We could alternatively unlock the TIE Bomber by finishing 5-3, but we'd have to go through 5-2 first, and this is where I got stuck. So if we can't go through the gate, we'll just have to go over it. If you do a loop-de-loop with the jump button and join in player 2 at the top of its arc, you can get them to spawn out of bounds and hit the loading trigger. From there, you can safely tow a bomb to the final wall and collect the red brick. That red brick unlocked Self-Destruct, which allows all droid characters to explode on command using the special button. This explosion can kill almost every enemy, including bosses. We can see this in action in Chapter 2-2, where I used R4 P17 to blow up in Jango Fett's face. Immediately after is 2-3, where we start with only Anakin and Padme before recruiting R2-D2 later in the level. Thankfully, Anakin can kill the Geonosians with the Force just like battle droids. Unfortunately, the factory proper features a couple of targets, which must be shot by a blaster bolt to move the giant buckets. My attempts to bypass these buckets were about as successful as Jar Jar's attempts at comedy. We need to press the attack button twice to fire Padme's blaster at the targets. Make sure it's already been drawn beforehand, or you'll have to press it an extra time. At least we can skip the third target by hitching a ride on the rim of the bucket with R2, using his explosions to clear a path to the door. Unfortunately, this last section requires the destruction of whatever this is, to give R2 a stepping zone to his panel. It's too far away for either R2 or C-3PO to reach it, so we have to fire Padme's blaster a third time, leaving this level with 3 attacks total. Chapter 2-4 gives us R2 right out of the box, and is thus a freebie. It's also here that we get to demonstrate that self-destruct can destroy silver LEGO objects, allowing us to get the red brick for perfect deflect. It may not be helpful just yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Chapter 2-5 would have been impossible in LEGO Star Wars the video game, as it's another rail shooter. The furthest we could get is the first shield generator. Thankfully, the complete Saga replaced this level with an updated version that lets you tow bombs everywhere. This allows us to both finish the level and get the completely free red brick with 0 attacks. Chapter 3-2 has a few battle droids to fight. The commanders are only stunned by the Force, but they die instantly if we push another droid into them. Once we get R2 back, the rest of the level, including the Count Dooku fight, is a pushover. Then there's Chapter 3-3, the boss fight with General Grievous. The good news is we have Commander Cody, who wields a blaster. The red brick from 2-5 unlocked exploding blaster bolts, which causes blaster bullets to explode on impact. The bad news is, it only applies to bullets that were either fired or reflected by a human player. Cody will only shoot Grievous if he's close enough, and he fires so quickly that we barely have any time to join him in as a player before the bullet connects. And that's assuming Grievous doesn't reflect it at the last second. I did manage to get one explosion hit in, but I wasn't able to replicate it. I was able to trigger some of the bombs by proximity, but overall this level cost me 8 attacks. Chapter 3-4 is one of the more difficult levels. Order 66 has just taken effect, and every single clone trooper has a functioning inhibitor chip. Luckily, there's a solution that makes this level 10 times easier. If you revisit Chapter 2-2 in free play with Commander Cody in your party, you can access the hidden disco room. This room contains the red brick for disarmed troopers, which replaces all clones' blasters with carrots. It has no effect on Chewbacca's crossbow, so you can swap to him after he fires to blow up multiple clones at once. Unfortunately, one of the 3 Wookiees we need to rescue can only be reached with a grapple point, which only blaster wielders can use. An AI Chewie refuses to stay up there long enough to shoot the clones, instead choosing to jump back down to Yoda. If we had the Force Grapple Leap red brick, we could get Yoda up there with him, but that red brick is at the very end of Episode 1, and we're nowhere near ready to progress through there. Luckily, we don't actually have to rescue every Wookiee. Free the first 2, then bait a clone into stepping on one of the buttons. Use the Force to keep him there, then have Yoda run to the other button to lower the bridge. The beach has a gate with targets to shoot, but we can just jump straight over it. When you get to the end of the level, have Chewie shoot at some clones that are close to the beacon to blow them up and reveal the escape pod. Chapter 3-5 is practically a freebie with disarmed troopers, but it also houses the most important red brick in the game. After finishing the level once, come back in free play with Jar Jar, C-3PO, and Cody. Once you pull all 3 switches on the left side of the room, use Jar Jar to reach the upper railing and jump up to the red brick. This unlocks Deflect Bolts, which causes you to automatically reflect any blaster bolts that hit you. This becomes incredibly useful in Chapter 4-1, where we can use it to kill the stormtroopers with their own shots. We can also use exploding blaster bolts to blow up the bombs next to Vader and get him away from the door. Once you pass the baton to R2 and 3PO, you've practically won already. And if you weren't aware, yes, you can use the crane with the special button. Chapter 4-2 immediately takes the droids away again, leaving us with Luke Skywalker and Ben Kenobi. We can deal with the Tuskens by combining Deflect Bolts with Perfect Deflect from 2-4, which allows Jedi to always reflect in the sender's direction. That being said, you'll want to turn it off for this first area so an exploding bolt can knock down this rock. Unfortunately, blaster bolts won't help us in the Jawa Sandcrawler. The valve handles have guards over them that prevent Kenobi from using the Force on them, and there's no enemies around to shoot us. By grabbing the Super Jedi Slam red brick from 3-3, I was able to extend the range of Kenobi's ground pound, destroying all the guards in only 3 attacks. Though in hindsight, I probably could have done it in 2 had I positioned them better. But regardless, we get R2 back at the end, so the rest of the level has no problems. Chapter 4-3 is smooth sailing at first. We can reflect the Stormtroopers' shots easily, and R2 can blow up this wall skipping the AT-ST. Unfortunately, the Mos Eisley Cantina doesn't serve his kind, and we need our entire party to stand on the buttons. I tried blowing up the tractor beams with self-destruct, but they seem to be explosion-proof. Make sure Luke was player-controlled during the prior Stormtrooper battle so his blaster is already drawn, and make sure he doesn't stow it. That way you can shoot all 4 tractor beams with 4 attacks. Things get a little hairier when we swap to Han Solo and Chewbacca, but we can use the Troopers' bolts to blow up this door and commandeer their pets. The boss fight with the Imperial Spy could theoretically be easy, but is completely optional. Have player 2 be R2, drop out, and use Kenobi to push him past the boss trigger. Once he's far enough, have R2 rejoin and stroll right into the Falcon. Chapter 4-4 takes away both Kenobi and our droids almost immediately. This becomes an issue here, as Kenobi won't open the path for us until every single trooper on the bridge is dead. Unfortunately, Perfect Deflect only works for Jedi, and hoping our reflections randomly find their way back home is not a reliable strategy. Luckily, we've got multiple blaster wielders, and they'll automatically aim towards them if they have nothing better to do. Once you've gotten past there, I recommend turning exploding blaster bolts off so you don't have to worry about losing your trooper helmet. After rescuing Leia, we can head straight back in there with R2 to get the tractor beam red brick, which makes us virtually invincible in vehicle levels. Our next goal is to finish the entirety of episode 6. 6-1 starts out pretty rough as we have only Leia and Chewie to work with. The surveillance droid's destruction is how we open the palace gate, and the only way we can damage them is by reflecting their shots. It'll take about an eternity, but it is eventually possible to kill them like this. The first set of Gamorrean guards can be cleared out by having an AI player start slapping them and then swapping to them mid-slap. We don't need to deal with that for long though, because we have access to bounty hunter helmets. While wearing these, we can throw thermal detonators with the special button. And if that's not good enough, Luke has the ability to force choke Gamorreans. We can make it all the way to the Rancor fight, where we can use R2 to do almost all the work, as usual. Chapter 6-2 is largely a pushover. Boba Fett basically beats himself with Perfect Deflect. Make sure you have at least one blaster ready when you enter the ship's interior. There's a wall that requires exactly one explosive blaster shot and nobody to engineer it for you, leaving this level with one attack. Once we reach the upper deck, we can use R2 to blow up the targets and finish the level. In Chapter 6-3, we can get out of the first area using only Luke by double jumping from the plant onto the first log. The level has multiple tedious chase sequences that force you to shoot down stormtroopers. We can completely ignore them. Get both players stuck in the corner on speeders, have Luke do a backflip while facing down, and tell him to drop out at the peak of the flip. This will cause him to dismount the speeder while still being in control, allowing you to jump over the barrier and into the loading zone, skipping half the level. Make sure you keep Leia joined in at all times, otherwise she'll just keep walking back to the start, preventing you from pulling the required levers. Unfortunately, the finale of the level requires you to commandeer an AT-AT and shoot all the generators. And to make matters worse, the AT-AT doesn't fire constantly when you hold the attack button. It fires exactly once per button press. To get the perfect aim, you'll have to walk right up to each generator and fire from point blank range. The best possible score for this level is 4 attacks. Chapter 6-4 gives us R2 to play with again, so most of it is easy. But even droids have their limitations, namely jump height or lack thereof. To get this door open, we have to fill in the track and push a bomb down from the roof. Luckily, we can bait the stormtroopers into grappling onto the roof with us and reflect their shots into the stuff we need to break. The same cannot be said for the room inside. The switch to turn these stairs into a ramp so 3PO can reach a panel is behind a destructible wall that R2 can't reach. I tried baiting a trooper into shooting me while I was up top, but he wouldn't even notice me. So I used one attack to shoot the wall. Chapter 6-5 is the boss fight with Emperor Palpatine, who has a whopping 18 hearts. Guess how many attacks you need to beat him? 0! Turns out Palpatine is the one boss that isn't immune to falling out of bounds. If you have Luke stand in the corner of the balcony while Vader is downstairs, Palpatine will decide to attack you downstairs. Get Vader down to 1 heart, then lure him into the left corner of the screen and have him attack you so that he's on the other side. Once Vader respawns, have Luke drop out and push Palpatine all the way off the edge to kill him instantly. Chapter 6-6 is where we finally get to show off the tractor beam red brick. We can use it to automatically immobilize and destroy the TIE fighters, letting us collect torpedoes to use against the cruisers. Once inside the Death Star, we get access to torpedo generators, letting us sweep most of the level. Unfortunately, while the lightning traps around the Death Star core can be destroyed with torpedoes, the core itself cannot, requiring us to use the Falcon's guns with 1 attack press. And no, smart bombs didn't work. Before doing that though, we can use the torpedoes to get our final red brick, Infinite Torpedoes. Back in episode 4, chapter 5 only gives us blaster wielders for most of the level. Thankfully, we can use reflected explosives to get through almost every obstacle. Unfortunately, the switches in this hallway have no enemies nearby, requiring 3 attacks to shoot them. Once we reach the end and reunite with R2, the rest of the level is a cakewalk. Chapter 4-6 is where we show off infinite torpedoes for the first time. We can use them both to lock onto the intended targets and to destroy the walls. Unfortunately, the guns around the exhaust port are immune to both torpedoes and smart bombs. I was worried this would require an attack press, but turns out deflect bolts applies to ships as well as people. In chapter 5-2, we can use an exploding blaster bolt to detonate a bomb and melt this ice. Soon after is an intersection, where you'll need to deflect some bolts to clear a path to the door on the right. Once that's done, we can send the train down the tracks to free 3PO, using his self-destruct to knock down a wall. After carrying 3PO with the snowmobile, 3PO can carry us through the rest of the level. The opening of chapter 5-3 tasks us with taking out all the guns, but torpedoes can't target them. Instead, we have to rely on reflecting their own shots back at them while directly overhead. Once we enter the asteroid field, our infinite torpedoes make this level trivial. Chapter 5-4 gives us R2, so you might think the level is easy. And you'd be right! Up until we get to the Phantom Vader fight. After every 2 hits, Vader teleports to a different spot, and R2's limited jump height makes reaching him difficult. Thankfully, we can use the uneven topography to our advantage and make it onto this box, where player 2 can use the Force to lift R2 up to him for hits 3 and 4. The next ledge is even higher up and requires a bit more complex puzzle solving. Get R2 onto the raised part of the ground in front, where he can just barely hover over to the big box on the left. Use the Force to put the other box in place as usual, then move the one R2 is standing on. At the top of its arc, have R2 hover over to Vader and deliver hits 5 and 6. After that, just drop back down to finish him off. Chapter 5-5 lets us blitz through the entire level with R2 almost exclusively. Chapter 5-6 is less forgiving as only Leia, Lando, and Chewie are present initially. We need 1 reflected explosion to go up these stairs, plus 4 more to beat Boba Fett. Once Boba escapes, we reunite with both R2 and 3PO. Unfortunately, this door requires a protocol droid panel, and 3PO is the one character in our party that doesn't even have a jump button. He can't get over this obstacle, so we have to hit the lamp above to remove it. I tried getting a reflection up there, but to no avail. We had to use one attack to fire Chewie's blaster. With the original trilogy cleaned out, we can get back to the prequels. Chapter 1-3 has a few grapple points that are covered by destructible objects. By reflecting the battle droid's shots, we can blow them up. We can use the same strategy to break this window, and we can even activate the targets with explosions. Unfortunately, these ones by the palace gate were too high up for me to reach. The best I could do here was 2 attacks by firing Captain Panaka's blaster with explosives. Just one more explosive reflection to open the final manhole, and we're done. Chapters 1-4 and 1-5 are extremely easy. The latter gives us R2 for the whole level, and the former doesn't even have an attack button. Chapter 1-6 is the boss fight with Darth Maul. We can take out the battle droids with perfect deflect, and we can finish the first phase with only the Force. Phase 2, however, forces us to attack with the lightsaber, and the AI refuses to cooperate. Even if we could push Maul into the void, he'd just jump straight back out. I tried using the Super Lightsabers extra from 3-3, which deals double damage, but it doesn't work against bosses. The best we can do is 1 attack per heart, or 10 total. We have exactly the same problem with Count Dooku in 2-6, and he's extra mean by using Force Lightning in Phase 3, during which his health doesn't actually deplete. That adds on an extra 3 attacks for a total of 13. Chapter 3-6 is largely a chase sequence, during which the jump button is your primary method of traversal. However, the third checkpoint requires the destruction of 2 canisters blocking the buttons. In LEGO Star Wars the video game, the AI will automatically destroy these canisters for you. But in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, you have to do it yourself, requiring 1 attack. And if you die before the next checkpoint, they'll rebuild themselves, forcing you to restart the entire level to undo that attack press. Unfortunately, using the original LEGO Star Wars game doesn't actually save any attack presses in the long term. It features a bombless version of Gunship Cavalry, and it doesn't let you use red bricks from LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. The Complete Saga requires less attacks overall, so that's what we're going with. The Anakin Skywalker boss fight is impossible to win for the same reason as Maul and Dooku. Luckily, failure is a completely valid strategy. Let Anakin get Obi-Wan down to 1 heart, then join in Player 2 during the final swing, officially winning the Obi-Wan Kenobi boss fight and ending the level. With the movie's canon viewing order demolished like Alderaan, the LEGO Star Wars minimum attack button run ends with a final score of 56 attack presses. Of course, if you happen to improve on my work, let me know in the comments. You can watch the full run without commentary on my archive channel. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. May the Force be with you, and I will see you down under.